Hey everybody, PTO Pro here. Today I'm going to make an element and extend a HAX, and I don't know where this is going to go, or if this ever actually gets published, because I'm going to have to extend HAX Schema, and so I wanted to show you what that entails. And so what the target goal I'm going for is building an element that's natively OER schema capable. And so OER schema, you can look it up. It's oerschema.org project, kind of related to HAX and Elm's Learning Network. We're all in one big happy family of things no one understands. So what this is basically extending schema.org definitions into pedagogy and education. So if I were to look at this and I was a robot, I would know by glancing at this that, I have something called steps to completion, which is supporting material of a design project. And these three things I just found are tasks as part of that supporting material named steps to completion. So it's kind of like machine wiring the human side, because the human will look at this and be like, oh yeah, steps to completion. I know these are tasks I have to do. Trying to express that to machines in this case. So there's a lot more to the spec than that. But this is the one that I'm going to try to target for right now. And so why this is complex, a sticky problem for HAX is, okay, there's a few ways to attack this. Let's look at the first way. So the first way, I'm going to fire up a HAX local instance, so do polymer serve, and then I go to /demo. So the first way would be via my inline selection API. So maybe I have a bulleted list, and let's say, like, hey, these are goals of HAX, so I would wire this somehow. And I would select this, and then maybe I would insert inline, and then here I might have, some other thing, right? Let's say instead of vocab, we could do vocab, content experience or whatever. But then in advanced, then I could go in, and you can see there's actually some schema prefixing going on automatically here, but then I could put that data in. I could do that type of, or is that property, right, and type of supporting material. So maybe I could say, well, property is task, and this is a type of supporting material. Now let's not get caught up in the fact that that wouldn't actually work, but maybe I could have that kind of a UX flow, and then I would highlight this, and I'd apply the thing, and apply the thing, and apply the thing. One, I don't know an educator on earth that's going to do that. It's kind of, it's important, but it's really hard to sell. Like, hey, you should go through all these steps in this cryptic language to do this. So whenever we want to eliminate cryptic things and room for error, what do? Class, we make a custom element. Yay. Okay, so we're going to make a new element. We're going to call this one. Again, I'm firing up my LRN developer tools. We're going to make this element called, task list, because that's ultimately what it is, right? It's a task, and it's supporting material, and we're going to wire that stuff in. That's important, but like someone to generally repurpose this, they don't care about that. So, okay, so I've got task list, and we're going to search for task list on my file system, pull that up, and then I'm going to pull this into my IDE to work on. All right. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I've got task list. And so the first thing I'm going to do, because I want to schematize this, and you'll notice this is actually, we've never really touched on this. This is why our elements pipe in with this automatically, this schema behaviors thing, is so that we can do this. So if I were to look at our demo tag here, even with nothing in it, and right click, you'll see that, there we go, task list has some schema metadata wiring automatically, and it's because we implemented that behavior. So what the behavior does is it drops in a UUID of a resource, so this could be uniquely referenced in the internet, and a prefix. And the prefix has to do with, what are these prefixes for, like, what's the schema definitions? And so we just load up a bunch of common ones for that case. So that's what that does. So what I'm going to do is we want to try and emulate this part of the page, right? So we're going to go and we're going to copy Michael Collins, he's a faculty member. and state. We're going to copy this example that he wrote, word for word. Okay, paste that in, and this isn't going to have a lot of design implication, which is obnoxious, but so for starters, this would be property for component. All right, so this is referencing some other thing, all right, that's unique. This resource ID, that's going to already exist. We don't have to worry about that one. But we are going to need a set type of, right? Because I want it on the high level thing. I don't want it buried down in here. So we're going to need to look real quick at how schema behaviors works in order to understand how to apply a type of. And so you see we have a schema map, and whenever the map changes, which is when the whole thing starts, it sets the attribute on itself to this randomly generated ID. So I basically need something similar. In the case of task list, we're going to do in the attached lifecycle hook, we're going to do, hey, set attribute, and in this case it's going to be our type of, and the type of this thing is going to be that. All right, resource ID we don't have to worry about. It already has one of those. And we don't need this wrapping div because it already has one of those. We're doing the easy parts right now. We're going to get to the hard part real soon here. All right, so this is supporting material. And so now we're going to say this item is supporting material. Let's tokenize it a little bit, right? So, so title, let's do the name of this task list, and we're going to take out steps to completion, do a data bind to name. Wow, that was hard. And then we're going to make the default value steps to completion because that's kind of like what a task list is. So we got steps to completion as our default name of this task list. All right, and then in here we've got these tasks. So for starters, let's hit save and go to the demo, see what that does. So, okay, I've got name there, my little auto-documenting thing. I've got my steps to completion, and I inspect, and we see the task list has a prefix, it has type of, and it has a resource. Yay, that's most of what it needed. And then we'd see, well, there's this link thing that goes to there. So we need this to be templatized in some way. So we're going to do a evaluated property bind, and we're going to bind it to related resource because that's going to be another unique ID from somewhere else in the document. I'm not going to worry about that for the purposes of this video. We're just going to add support for it. So related resource ID, that, and it's going to be type string. And that's it. We're not putting anything else with it. Okay. So if it exists, then we'll insert this link reference so that it binds the two together. Sweet. Okay. So we're going to take out the comments. We don't need those in our DOM. I'm going to make this list this size. And so anyone class, can you see what the problem is? I'm sure you can see what the problem is about to be. How the heck do we put these in here? So what we're going to need is we're going to want an array structure. So we've got an array of links, or li basically. How we can do that in Polymer is we can do a template is equals DOM-repeat and items equals, and then we're going to data bind to steps or tasks. It's probably better, tasks, more generic, as equals task. Okay, and then in there we're just going to put 1, and we're going to kind of force feed this to get it to work the first time. So this is going to be task dot label, or maybe name, be the name of this task. Okay, name of the task. We're going to put in the task wiring automatically. We're going to copy these other two. We'll see in a second why. And then we're going to go down to here. We're going to have to put some tasks. So task list. Okay, tasks. What's that? Type array. Ooh. Value equals, and we're going to force feed it a value. Otherwise we won't be able to do anything to start this. So in here, we're going to have an array of objects. And the objects are going to have a structure of name to start. So name, submit the project. And then we're going to have another one, which is like that. Clean it up visually a little bit, even though it's just for a demo. Okay, submit the project, and then there's probably this create the project, and we'll paste that in. See what it said here previously. I want read the readings. Cool. Okay, so read the readings, submit the project, create the project probably goes before submitting the project. So we're going to put that there, save, and let's see if this worked at all. Okay, so go back to our demo, and hey, we've got our 3 things there. And say, how the heck did that happen? Our template repeater goes through, and it's just going to stamp those things in there. All right, so now we've got tasks. Again, where's the hard part? It's not a hard part here yet. So we've got tasks, and let's space these out. I just like to space them a little bit better. All right, so it's an array, okay. And we've got tasks, and then we're going to print this in. And now we're going to have a task list that has all this OER metadata wired into it. It's pretty awesome. Task, a singular thing to accomplish. That'd be nice. Accomplish. There we go. All right. Task list is visual listing of tasks with different design components. That is OER schema capable. All right. So where's the hard part? It's clearly not in documentation. It clearly wasn't in generating this to begin with. I'm not going to go into theming. Like, where is the hard part to this? What could it be? How the heck do we data bind in HAX to tasks? What the heck are tasks? So that's what we're going to have to solve here. So first, let's go through our properties. Okay, so if we had this list and it was in HAX, could you scale it and position it? Sure, I guess. You wouldn't be able to edit the source. And so let's do task list. That would be a useful thing for a user to drop in. A list of tasks, which is an ordered list, more or less. Okay. And then we need a good icon. Everybody needs good icons, obviously. We're going to make this orange for no reason. And to find icons, I go to the same place I always do. webcomponents.org. We're going to go to demo, and we're going to find probably the word list or something. There we go. Okay. List. Sweet. All right. So now of our list icon, and this is just content. Okay. And instructional. We'll say it's instructional because it is giving steps. Should this have a handler with it? Probably no. I mean, I guess it could be that it's text or something, and it could go to the name. It's kind of silly. Like, I don't really think it should. You know, actually, let's just take out the handlers. That doesn't make any sense, to be perfectly honest. All right, metadata, LRN, web components. All right, so now we got to bind to these different properties. So we got name, and this is name of the list. Okay, it's going to be a text field. And we're not going to use that list icon. All right, then in configuration, copy, paste. All right. Then we're going to want related resource in there as well, even though it doesn't have a ton of implication right now, because we're not going to do anything with it at the moment, but we will later, I'm sure. So related resource, a reference to the related schema resource. Okay, yeah, because you know most people know what the heck that is. All right, so and we're going to put that on our configuration form, and then we're going to go and we're going to make another one on the advanced one, which is going to be to tasks, and put tasks in there, and we'll say tasks, and then we're going to write the tasks to be completed or whatever. All right, and then I'm going to go to input method. I'm going to say, what the heck do I do now? That doesn't make any sense. How am I going to express a complex object which potentially has name and let's say link, because link is another important one, right? If we wanted this to jump someplace else. How am I going to ever do that? There's an easy solution, obviously, and it's OER schema, and by that I mean JSON schema. And so what is it in JSON schema that we could use? Well, I'm going to pull over a link here, hidden off camera. So there's this tag that we leveraged quite heavily called eco-JSON schema object, and don't need to go into all of it. Effectively, what it gets you, if you follow JSON schema, which is a standard, is this. Is you can read in JSON schema on the left, and then get a form of output in the middle, and then see what the values are on the other side. And so far, we've mapped to simple things like these. And we've done some input validation, right? Like address has to have a minimum length, so that if this was like 2 characters, you see it's red, now it's happy. Okay? So, in here though, and we haven't set this up just yet, and we're about to, is that it actually supports arrays, which is incredible. So what it does with an array, if an item is an array, it adds a plus sign here and does this plus and minus capability. And so then when I do an add, it's going to add in type object, and then the items in there are going to be proper, or you see the properties of this object is going to be phone number and type. And type, we'll say stuff, and phone number is 123, 123, 123, 4, 3. And so you'll see what you end up getting is the composite here, right? So it creates an object, or an array that then is of objects. Well, an array of objects sounds an awful lot like what we need to make. So if I had name here, and I had link here, and then we set this to name, and we set this to, I don't know, link, and we said optional or something. Now, instead of phone numbers, it's going to be tasks, and here we're just going to say tasks. And so now when I do tasks, I get the data structure I was looking for, like clean your bed, go to work, all that fun stuff, and we'll get this composite pair here. So right now we don't actually support arrays in HAX Schema. The difference between HAX Schema and JSON Schema has been this additional level of abstraction. So for example, instead of having to write JSON Schema, you're writing, hey, I need this property to be bound with this name, and here's some other stuff, and we'll wire it in later. You know, an icon on the interface, right? There's no implication for interfaces or icons in JSON Schema. So we needed something else anyway. So I need to load up what's called HAX body behaviors, and that's where the translation layer happens. And so let's look in our task list for where is it? Text field. And let's see in here where text field is coming into play. Okay, adding some. Okay, so there's a default validation input method text field, and then down here we can see if the case is text field, do this extra stuff basically. So what we need to figure out how to do is to define an array and then maybe supply like items or something. I mean, this is going to get really complicated really quickly as far as like what we could wire into it. And I don't want HAX Schema to be really complicated. So maybe what we need is like case array as the thing that we're going to add in. And so in the case of an array, if we look up here, right, there's some validation. It's going to do title and it's going to do type. So immediately I'm going to have to go and figure out where this function is. All right, this function's down here. And we're going to have to say that it's valid, which is fine. So case array, and we're going to return array. And I do this just so that people don't leverage parts of JSON schema that we haven't fully adapted yet to HAX. Would that cause a problem? I don't think so, but trying to plan ahead to make sure that we've actually said what parts of JSON schema are valid for usage here, because it can get pretty verbose. So, all right, we allow arrays, and again, if we don't know what the heck it is, then it's just a string. But now, because we allow arrays, whenever this thing comes in, okay, we're gonna have title. So let's try and wire this up. Let's step on both sides of it here. Okay, so properties, tasks, title is the word tasks, and so title is gonna go there. Input method is gonna be array, okay, and then array is gonna go in there. All right, and then I'm going to come down through. I'm going to see if it has a value automatically. Right, in this case, it doesn't have a value. We're going to look. We're not doing any additional validation. Then it's going to loop through the input methods. And you see we already have a pretty complex one translated with select. So select, if you pass in options, then it will just present them there. It's extremely useful. So I think what I'm going to do instead with task list is we're going to have items. And items is going to be a pretty, just kind of like nested thing here. So we're going to do like this. We're going to basically wire properties in and define it into items. Because it's an array of items. It's not an array of properties in this case. And we don't want it to be specific to tasks in any way. So items is going to have, there we go, name and link in this case, and the word optional. And I know that this is happy-go-lucky JSON schema, way of laying these things out, because I already tested it on that other side. So this would be kind of building definition for items. And then I see that this is the rest of the structure of that object. So type is going to be correct, title is going to be correct, the word tasks is going to be correct. What I'm going to need to do is add support for this items part. So I can get out of that and make sure that this, it's a nice little valid chunk there. Okay, so I'm going to take task list, and now in here where we have array, okay, so we started it, we didn't put anything in yet. I'm just going to have to try and match to this. So it's going to be settings, whoops, not properties there, it's going to be that equals settings.items, because those are the items that are going into this, right, even though it's in items here. And so then what we're going to need to do is this. Properties, property, okay. All right, so we're inside those properties. Okay, and then in here we're going to do a dot items equals, and then we're going to say type, I'm just going to type it again, object, and then properties is going to be right there. Okay. So now that should be enough to get the correct definition in place, right? Because it's an array, and then in an array, as far as looking at what JSON schema expects, right? So I have tasks, and our type is array. Then I'm going to pass in items, and I'm predefining this part, and then they're passing in, you, whoever you are viewing this, is passing in this other part. Now this is going to get a little bit closer to the actual JSON schema spec than I have typically wanted to, as far as what HAX schema does, but it's pretty wed to it already, so it's not a huge deal. All right, so then if I define this as an array, I don't actually need an icon definition there. And then items is these things. They should just show up. Now, I'm going to need a place to test this, obviously. So first thing I do when I'm doing this level of intense modification, I make sure it actually still works. All right, make sure I don't have any silly syntax errors or anything there. Okay, and then the next thing I do is that, so I've edited directly a file called HAX body behaviors. And so what I do is I go into HAX body, which is running on my local machine, and I directly modify the copy of HAX body behaviors. Now, this is obviously not, like super desirable workflow, but some of these like critical pieces I end up working this way a bit. So task list, again, because it doesn't have a published release, I just started working on it at the beginning of this video. We're going to paste it in there. And so now task list is in Bower components. And then to get this to auto load, and this is a newer part of the app spec that has been added for HAX. So now App Store, if you've seen any of the stuff before, App Store used to just support apps. Well, now it supports setting up like the whole environment of what it is you're trying to do with this. So there's apps, there's stacks, which are like little template things to drop in, and now the auto loader is also in there. So if I add this reference into the auto loader, because I'll want this anyway, so if I add task list, that should be enough to probably at least just generate a whole ton of errors. Until we figure out what the deal is. Well, it didn't generate any errors yet, so that's nice. Okay, let's go to edit, and now we're going to make something. And you can see task list is there. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to hit task list, and I did just generate a big old error behind the scenes as far as pull that over here. Property type is undefined and cannot read property component of undefined. So I'll have to dig into those a bit. But that's the idea of extending this. So I'm going to hit pause and see if I can't resolve that real quick. There's no reason to have this recorded for like 20 minutes potentially. And then we'll pick back up on the other side. Hopefully this part will be working. I'll be really excited to see if it actually does. Okay, so I paused there for a sec. It actually only took like 2 minutes to fix, which is awesome. Basically, when I was doing this previously, I said I had to add in support for arrays and say, hey, array equals array. And most things I don't call just like an array. Like these other things are rare. Like see select, I then say, well, you're a string. But leading up to that, I needed to actually say what's valid, which I had mentioned when I was doing it, but I didn't do. An array is a valid method of input, is what I have to fundamentally say in HAX. Okay. So then if it's a valid method of input, we're going to take these tasks in this array. We're going to say that this is empty. I don't want those to come across. And we're going to take our as defaults, right? I don't need defaults to be in there, unless they actually are. So the other thing, we're going to do notify true on this. That's just a little data binding thing. Should help keep it up to date. So put that in, okay, and then I'm going to take my task list, which I've got in Bower, and I've got over here in my like there's a local source and then there's like working on it in the HAX body. So I pasted it in, I fixed that one line basically, and so now we're going to edit. So I'm going to make something. I'm going to use a task list, and now I'm leveraging the array aspect of JSON Schema's integration here. So now I can hit the plus, and we can add a thing. And then we can add another thing. So go to the store. And obviously I need to do some UX work on this. Clean up the mess. But then when I hit insert, we scroll to the bottom, we've got our steps to completion, and we've got those 3 items in there. Using HAX to do the authoring, which is pretty stinking cool. Then if I inspect the DOM, see what the DOM is going to look like and what something coming along a robot would see. A robot is going to see, hey, that's got the right prefix. I didn't define what component it was for, which I could have done. It's got the heading, and that heading is the name, and it's steps to completion because I said so. And then it's got an ordered list with 3 tasks correctly written in the order I put them in. Now, is the UX of this perfect? Certainly no. But this video is 29 minutes, add 5 minutes for debugging that one thing. And we've got a brand new construct in HAX as far as what types of data it can express. If I go into settings, and this will have to then be, okay, well, how do I do the data binding? Like there's certainly things to get that perfect. Right, this is looking at what it was saying before as far as, hey, there's tasks and looking at what that object looks like. Right, so it is in there, right? That data is in there with value, and I can see what it would have made the value, but it didn't unpack it here via the data binding ahead of time. That feels relatively minor compared to what just happened. And so I can see, that data is there. There just isn't an easy way of recalling it currently. Now I wonder then if that's something to do with, because you can't edit this directly, no. I wonder if that's something baked into this data model needing to be updated, or something that I just need to do to make the UI unpack and bring this clean your bed stuff forward. But clearly some things to add there, right? And a better GUI for doing this. But that starts to be a question of, okay, well, do I add that to the eco-JSON object tag? Do I update this in HAX to account for it? Or like, where do I do that? But now if I insert, right, I still have my original 3 items. So, obviously some data binding things that I have to clean up, but, oh, there it is. There's that extra one. That's kind of a known quantity. When working in Polymer with like arrays and objects and not just strings, you have to do some little silly things at times to do the data binding correctly. And that's just for performance, really, because this sort of thing is easy to data bind and update, in real time, or this resource, which doesn't do anything necessarily, but if I go and I look at my task list, it should, there we go, content, it wired that into, or this resource, right? So that would have been that unique resource, tying these things together schematically. I can also turn on X-ray vision now, and I can see that this is a task list and that it has a bunch of schematic metadata attached to it, including the unique resource ID. So if I made these selectable, which we're not right now, but if I could select this, when in X-ray vision, I'd be able to basically tie these things together schematically by copying that resource ID and dumping it over here. So not fully finished, but I hope this is a useful kind of exercise of how we go about attacking these problems and how we're able to build stuff for HAX with increasing speed without increasing complexity.